What is up, guys? Someone on the channel asked about the OneXplayer 1S versus the AOKZOE. So if you're watching this, making this video just for you and anyone else who's interested. So the reason why this is an interesting comparison is because we have two handhelds that are very similar in size. We have the AOKZOE here, which is 8 inches, and the OneXplayer 1S that is 8.4 inches. So it's interesting to see, especially with the OneXplayer 2 coming out next year. It's interesting to see how these screen sizes compare. Right off the bat, I will say that I've been using the AOKZOE primarily, and I haven't really noticed the 0.4 inch difference between the screen sizes. I think that 8 inches is a great screen size, especially for form factor and resolution and clarity. A few things to note here: the OneXplayer 1S does have a higher resolution screen. So this is 2560 by 1600, and this is 1920 by 1200. So they're both the same 16 by 10 aspect ratio, but this resolution is higher. With that being said, this device cannot really handle AAA games at that resolution. So most of the times you're going to be playing at a lower resolution than the AOKZOE. So for example, right now I'm playing Spider-Man Miles Morales. The AOKZOE is playing this at 1920 by 1200, and the OneXplayer 1S is playing at 1280 by 800. So this is about 75% of the resolution of this one. So it's definitely not going to be able to play AAA games at full resolution. But I will say that where this screen does come in handy is if you're streaming, if you have good internet and you're doing like GeForce Now, you can get that full 2K resolution. And if you're playing older games, like I would say from the Xbox 360 generation, you are able to play a lot of those older games at the full 2K resolution. So as you can see here, we're playing at the full resolution here, and we're playing at about half resolution on here. So you can see we got a nice smooth gameplay. Let's just go around here, and you can see, it looks good on here. It looks good, it looks smooth, and I have no real complaints with the size here. After a few updates, Spider-Man Miles Morales has been playing much better on the OneXplayer 1S, but I don't really play on here only because some of the new devices are much better. I just bring it out every now and again just to test out the new drivers and see how it's working, see how it's holding up. Okay, so now we are playing a 4K video on both of the screens just to get a sense of the colors and clarity here. Now, of course, these devices are not 4K. This is an 8.4 inch 2K screen. This is a 8 inch 1200p screen. So the resolution on here is higher and the screen is a little bit bigger, but I do think that the colors and contrast do look a little bit better on the AOKZOE in person. But I have to give a nod, of course, to clarity on the OneXplayer 1S. So this gives you a sense of the screen size. There isn't much of a noticeable difference between the screen sizes. When you're watching, you can kind of get a sense that this is larger, but it's not so much, especially when you're playing games. You're not able to really notice that 0.4 inch difference between the screens. I will say that it is noticeable when you go to a 7 inch screen. For example, I have the OneXplayer Mini here, and it is very noticeable when you go to that 7 inch screen. It is noticeable, the screen size difference. But going from the 8.4 inch OneXplayer 1S to the 8 inch AOKZOE, not really a big difference in terms of screen size. It's hard to really capture on camera because they do kind of sit at different heights. So one may look a little bit different, but the size isn't very noticeable. So hopefully you get a sense of how it looks. On camera, I can see that the AOKZOE looks a little bit darker, and that has to do with the contrast and how the camera is actually capturing the exposure. But I will say in person, the AOKZOE, the colors and the contrast are much more pleasant to look at. So for example, this brown here looks much richer on the turtle shell, and the blue is much more deep. This one seems sort of like washed out. Just from me looking at it in person, it may not translate over to the video, but I will say that it does look much more washed out on the OneXplayer 1S. So yeah, that's just the difference between these two screen sizes. Not really talking too much about the performance. I will say that the AOKZOE is much more ergonomic. If you look at the grip here, I added these extra 3D printed grips, but if you look at this, grip is almost non-existent compared to this much more deep grip here. You can see that it's pretty much non-existent in terms of grip. The AOKZOE is much more ergonomic, and I had to add these 3D printed grips onto the OneXplayer for it to even be usable. But yeah, just a quick overview of the screens here. I would say that this is a higher resolution, but this screen, it looks better in terms of color and contrast, and the resolution isn't so much less that it's much noticeable, and you can play games at native resolution as opposed to 90% of games you're not going to be able to play at native resolution on the OneXplayer 1S. So yeah, I hope that helps. There was one guy asking about it in the comments, so this video is for you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.